Linda here, the scrapbooking photographer. Welcome to today's video, which is taking part in two hops. One for Follow a Sketch February by Sandy Reversky from Scrapping Reflections. And this is the sketch that we've got today, which has been designed by Pam Callaghan. I haven't got a star big enough, so I'm changing the shape to a hexagon. Now this hexagon comes from a wonderful set of dies from Stampin' Up called Meant to Be dies. And there's a whole bunch of nesting hexagons, and I've only just opened it and decided that this would be the best size. Now the reason I've decided that that will be the best size is that it fits this stamp here in our decorative trees. I'll be able to fit that stamp just inside here to stamp a border around that, and also use that on a journaling box, which brings me to the second hop we're doing today, and that's the Stamp and Stencil Savvy. And this month our prompt is to stamp a journaling box. The photo I've got is from Christmas a few years ago with my husband and my sister-in-law and me in the middle. Because we're all wearing blue, I decided to not do Christmas papers but do blue papers, and I've taken them from the Country Lace Designer Series paper from Stampin' Up, with a background piece here and some Night of Navy to stamp in. So I think the first thing we need to do is get our basic hexagon shape. So I'll trim a bit out of here and we'll start with that. So because this die has a trough around the outside, it means we get the outline as a separate die, and we also get the inside. So this is the piece I want to use for my title. I believe it's Misty Moonlight from Stampin' Up. But this piece provides us with a nice width for the white to come through. So with our background of white willow, my thinking is that we end up with a piece there on the top left, and we need the three different papers radiating at alternate bits around that main hexagon. Now, the measurements that Pam has given us on the sketch won't apply to this because I'm using a hexagon, not a star. But what I think we can do is trim a corner, because that's where I want that to go. So what I might do is cut a quarter out of there. It will be way too much, but I'd rather have too much than too little. Here we are with our 6-inch piece, and we want a hexagon to fit about there. So what I'm going to do is use this to get the frame around the outside. So if I put that over the hexagon, making sure it's nice and straight, and I'll washi tape that down. And I'll pop that through the cutter. And when we carefully remove the washi tape, we'll end up with I'm going to collect hexagons today apparently. So if that goes in the corner there, you can see how that will fit in there, but of course we don't want the same colours all the way through. So what we're going to do is trim it just above that point and just at that point there, I think. And the reason I'm going above this point is because it comes to a point towards the side. So I would like that white frame line to come with the point in the middle. This one, however, is already to the left of the point because of the way it's cut. So if we cut straight up there, then we can bring the new colour in. So I'll trim those on my trimmer. So using the top of the trimmer to make sure it's straight, we can come in at that point, and then this one we want to be just above it. So there we have one piece. Now I think it's just a matter of building up around that with the different papers in a similar way. We might use this lined one next for this one, and that looks pretty easy because I think it's just going to be a square, and I'll use this paper for that because it's got lines coming that way, and I'll probably do the same down from here. So actually what I could do is cut a strip the right width and have it going all the way through. So let's have a little measure, a technical measure in here. If we go to the edge of that little flower, we're going to end up with a straight piece that is as long as this piece here. So we'll just turn it over and put the pencil mark on the back and trim that. And the same down the bottom, because it's obviously the same width. And we want a frame at the bottom as well, so we'll just cut it off at that flower there. Right, the third paper we're bringing in is this one from Country Lace, and we'll pop that in the corner here. So we'll use that as the background and just rearrange our pieces the way we know we want them to go. Right, I'll trim that so it fits through the cuttlebug, and then I'll cut that out. And we get this piece. So the reason I'm using the hexagon shape every time, of course, is to get those lines nice and straight and the right size. It's just a bit too tricky to manage it without using the same die cut every time, for me anyway. So I do that. Another hexagon for later. Now the bit we want here is this piece down from here. This is going to go on there like that, because that lines up to the edge of what we've cut before. And then this one comes in the bottom, same thing. So we want to come just underneath this line here and then down from that point there. I can trim these ones a little bit more if we need to. I think that's about right. Right, so that's basically how we're doing it. We've only got two more to go, and they're pretty similar. So this one piece of paper here, it's not wide enough to use it the same way, but because it is mobile, you can move it around, it will be similar enough. I'm going to use that for this piece over here, which is going to fill that bit there. So all I need to do here is cut, where's our hexagon? Yeah, I just need to pop that on the edge, and that will give us a nice clean edge there. Now, I did have to measure where I could trim it up the top so it would fit through the cuttlebug. that is going to go here. Oh, I didn't quite get that right, did I? Rather than get another piece of paper out, what I'm going to do is have a wider margin around the outside, and I'll trim everything else accordingly. So let me just trim this at the apex there, which is what we've done on everything else, and just above that line there. Okay, and then we want this piece down here, which I think is going to have to be a new piece of that because I trimmed it quite cavalierly. Now the other problem I'm going to have with this piece is that it isn't going to fit in the Cuttlebug because it's just too wide. So I'm actually going to just place it where we want it, and using this as a guide, just trim right across there, and that should fit in. Once I trim the width, that will be cool. If we leave that one there, and this one needs to be trimmed in line with that apex like we have done before. I'll just take a little bit off it there, and that should nest nicely in that spot there. So then it's just a matter of lining up the outsides, and I think the best way to do that probably is to now start sticking. So I will start with sticking down the hexagon. Be interesting to see how everybody else has handled the sketch. I imagine that the star would be just as tricky as this is proving to be. Just want to make sure that it's in there straight. Okay, now we've got, as we mentioned, a little bit of a wider frame, so we need to make sure that we do the same on the edges. So I'm going to trim it just the side of those flowers. Stick that one down, and that one we can trim just there. It's a bit like putting a jigsaw together now, and that works fine. I'll stick that down. Make sure it's in straight. Now this one we need to trim on two sides, but I'm going to do them one side at a time. So we'll trim it at the top there, and at the side about there. As you can see, my measuring is pretty much by eye, because at the end of the day that's how you're going to look at it. So I figure that kind of works the best. Right, we can stick that down. And this one obviously needs to be trimmed the same way. Again, making sure that I get these trimmings straight. Okay, we need to just trim a little bit off the bottom here to make it even. So I've stuck those down, and then bring this piece in, and again that should fit in that gap there. We just need to trim it where it needs to be trimmed. We'll trim it there, and we'll trim it here. And that's the base of the page done, and the hardest part of it. And then we'll get on to doing our journaling box, which is going to be stamped, and the title, and of course the photo. Alrighty, so the photo is going to be mounted in this colour. It's a very blue outline, but I think it will also need some white behind it. So we'll trim that and mount it. Okay, so I think we'll pop that there, and then the journaling box I've made 3 by 4, which is what it is in the original sketch, and I'm just going to pop that either there or maybe, see, the sketch went like that and that kind of makes sense, so I've changed it a bit. What happens if I turn it around? So what I think might work is if we turn it around this way and have our photo highlighted again with a little bit of white to go there, and then have this just coming over here as a journaling box, and I think it fits quite well there. So I'll trim this and get that all mounted. So we can put the picture here the way we planned. That fits quite nicely with an even sort of frame around it. This is our journaling box, and it's going to fit quite nicely there. If I bring the blue down in line here, it ends up pretty even here. But we need to stamp this, because for Stamp and Stencil Savvy, we need to do a stamped journaling box. So that's where this little stamp here from the decorative trees comes in handy. Put that on a long thin block, and we're just going to go along the edges and stamp a little border with that, and we'll also put this little one in the corner. So we'll do that first with the mat upside down. So I've got the sponge underneath where I'm going to stamp, and I'm going to be brave and use a new ink pad from Stampin' Up. But before I stamp it, I'm just going to see how strong it is, because these ink pads are particularly spongy. So with a light touch, I'm going to come around and do these 4 corners. That one. Now bringing in this long one, it's just like a little chain which could be used to hang things from, and you can see that the ink does get onto the background, which I don't want to transfer to this cardstock, and I could go around and wipe it all off, but that would risk wiping it off the bit I do want it on as well. So I'm just going to have to be very careful here and place it in the middle. Okay, that's good, and I might wipe it off in between and try it a little harder to dodge it. That's better. It's a matter of getting your eye in, really. And that one. And then it should fit on the sides as well, I think. And we want it to go to there. So I'll just mask that a little bit and line it up. And then the same on the other side. So again, we want it lined up so it finishes just before the other corner. Okay. Now I'm also going to use the same one on around the outside of here, just to get it to blend a little bit. So hopefully I can have the same carefree hand. Now I'm just going to come in a little bit from the edge and have it going around the outside. So whilst on the journaling box the loops are coming outwards, this one their loops are going to go inwards. Now I could have stamped all these before putting them in here, but that would have spoiled the surprise, wouldn't it? So we're going to need another little bit of scrap paper here because we don't want it to go over the edge. So we have a stamped journaling box, and it's done the same kind of stamping around the hexagon. So I'll just tidy this away, and I've put some sticky on the back of that, so we'll just line that up the way we had it. Right, so I can go ahead and do my journaling off camera. So we just want a little bit of embellishing down here, and I think what would work well is a couple of little trees. So I've cut one in the Night of Navy, and I think if we put a little bit of white on that, so these are also cut out from the decorative tree set, and then put a little one of these just behind it just to blend it in a bit. But I'm going to stamp this one with some leaves from that set also. These were well used during the Christmas time, these stamps, but they don't always have to be green. So we'll put a blue one in and see what that looks like. So that just helps it to stand out a bit, and just to kind of make a note that it is actually Christmas time, that this was happening. So with the trees stuck down, I have cut some letters out with the Stampin' Up! Mini alphabet die. So we'll just place these here before I stick them down. And because this won't be going in my Christmas album, so it will just be going in our annual album, so I'll just put the Merry Christmas. And because Christmas is quite a long word, I'm going to cheat and use Xmas. Alright, so I can stick those down. I've stuck those down now, and I just feel it needs a little something here. I'm going to add a couple of little stars, again using the Night of Navy. And just to finish off with, I've got a couple of black and white pieces of ephemera that I'm just going to pop in different spots. I think it just needs a little bit to break up the blue, but I didn't want to put too much colour in there because it's basically monochromatic. So I'll stick those down there. And then, so I hope you've enjoyed watching this come together. Some parts of it have taken longer than I thought they would and have been slightly challenging to my maths brain, but we've got there, and I'm really happy with the way it looks. And I'll use the hexagons that we cut out on the companion page when I do that. So I'll just grab a couple of little bits of bling. And these are from Stampin' Up! As well. And I'm just going to dot a couple of these big sparklies around to give it that festive feeling. Thank you so much for watching today. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, then please do. I'm aiming for 500 subscribers hopefully early this year, so I'd really like it if you hit that subscribe button and joined in on the journey. And do make sure that you watch the other creators on these two hops. This page looks a little bit different to what the sketch was that we were given, but I quite like the straight lines and things that go with it. Actually, that needs a couple more bits of bling in the middle there, doesn't it? I might just put 3 small ones in there, and then we'll call it done. I'll put a couple of still pictures at the end so you can have a close-up look at things. But there we are. That's my page for Stamp and Stencil Savvy, where we've stamped the journaling box, and also the first day of Follow a Sketch February. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and happy crafting!